Montana Territory, 1876. The rain slashed down like vengeance itself, muddying the single street of Copper Creek to a treacherous bog. Liam O'Connor hunched beneath the meager protection of his oilskin coat, one hand pressed to his side, where blood seeped through his fingers. The gunshot wound wasn't deep. The bullet had only grazed him, but in this weather, with night falling fast, even a scratch could turn deadly. Through sheets of rain, Liam spotted the weathered sign of the Frontier Hotel. He staggered toward it, each step an effort against the sucking mud and his fading strength. At 24, he'd survived worse, but never alone, never with winter approaching, and never with the memory of his brother's lifeless eyes haunting his every thought. The hotel's front desk was unmanned when he stumbled in. Blood dripped onto the worn floorboards as he rang the tarnished bell, leaving crimson evidence of his presence. The sound echoed through the quiet lobby, answered by nothing but the persistent drumming of rain against glass. "Hello." His voice came out as a rasp. "Anyone?" A door opened behind the desk, and a young woman emerged, her honey-brown hair escaping from a practical bun. She wore a simple blue calico dress with a white apron, both spotlessly clean despite the muddy season. Her eyes widened at the sight of him, or more accurately, at the sight of the blood now pooling at his feet. "Sir, are you?" She rushed around the counter. "You're injured. Sit down before you fall." "Just need a room," Liam managed, though his knees were already buckling. "And maybe a doctor." "Dr. Pullman left for Billings yesterday," she said, helping him to a wooden chair. Her hands were surprisingly strong for someone so delicate-looking. "I'm Abigail Forrester. My father owns this hotel, and I've some experience with wounds. Let me help you." That was the last thing Liam heard before darkness claimed him. The sensation of cool cloth against his forehead woke him. Liam found himself in a narrow bed, his shirt removed and a clean bandage wrapped around his midsection. The room was small but tidy, lit by a single kerosene lamp that cast long shadows across the walls. "You're lucky," said a feminine voice. "The bullet only grazed you, though you might have died from the fever if you'd stayed out in that rain much longer." Liam turned his head to find Abigail Forrester sitting beside the bed, a basin of water on the nightstand next to her. "How long was I unconscious?" he asked, his throat dry as prairie dust. "Just the night. It's morning now." She offered him a cup of water, which he accepted gratefully. "You arrived quite dramatically, Mr. O'Connor." Liam O'Connor. He hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. The men who'd shot him could still be looking. "I'm much obliged for your help, Miss Forrester." "Abigail, please." She smiled, and Liam noticed her eyes were the color of summer skies. "We don't stand on formality much in Copper Creek. Not many people to impress." Liam attempted to sit up, wincing at the pain that shot through his side. "I should pay you for the room and your trouble. Rest first," she insisted, gently pressing him back onto the pillow. "Father's away and Helena on business. We have plenty of empty rooms this time of year, and I couldn't very well turn away a man bleeding on our doorstep." There was something in her manner, a quiet confidence, an independence unusual for a woman so young, that intrigued Liam. He guessed she couldn't be more than 22. Most people might have fetched the sheriff instead, he pointed out. Abigail's smile turned wry. "Sheriff Donovan is 73 and drinks more whiskey than water. Besides, I've learned to judge a man's character quickly in this business. You don't strike me as an outlaw." The irony of her words wasn't lost on Liam. Not an outlaw, perhaps, but he was certainly running from the law, or at least from men who wore badges but served only their own interests. "What brings you to Copper Creek?" she asked, wringing out the cloth and placing it back on his forehead. Before Liam could formulate a suitably vague answer, a small voice called from the doorway. "Abby, is he awake?" A little girl of about 6 stood there, her dark hair in 2 neat braids, watching Liam with undisguised curiosity. "Emma, I told you to stay downstairs," Abigail admonished, though there was no real sternness in her tone. "Is he going to die?" the child asked bluntly. Liam couldn't help but chuckle, despite the pain it caused. "Not today, little miss." "This is my sister, Emma," Abigail explained. "Emma, this is Mr. O'Connor. He'll be our guest until he recovers." The girl regarded Liam solemnly. "Are bad men chasing you?" Abigail gasped. "Emma." But Liam met the child's gaze steadily. "What makes you think that?" "You got shot," she stated matter-of-factly. "In my book, The hero only gets shot when bad men are chasing him. Emma Forrester, that is quite enough, Abigail said, rising from her chair. Go help Mrs. Holbrook with the breakfast preparations. I'll be down shortly. With a dramatic sigh that only a child could master, Emma departed, though not before giving Liam one last curious glance. I apologize for my sister, Abigail said. Our mother died 3 years ago, and Emma has developed quite an imagination from reading too many dime novels. No apology needed, Liam assured her. She's a sharp one. A troubled look crossed Abigail's face. Mr. O'Connor. Liam, I don't mean to pry, but if there is trouble following you, I should know. I have Emma to consider. The concern in her voice, not for herself, but for her sister, struck Liam deeply. Here was a woman taking care of a hotel, a young sister, and now a wounded stranger, all with a grace that spoke of strength rather than burden. The men who did this, he said carefully, have no reason to come to Copper Creek. I was miles away when it happened, and I doubled back several times before the storm forced me here. It wasn't the whole truth, but it wasn't a lie either. Relief softened her features. Good. Rest now. I'll bring you some breakfast shortly. As she turned to leave, Liam caught her hand. The gesture surprised them both. Thank you, Abigail. Not everyone would show such kindness to a stranger. A flush colored her cheeks. In the West, Mr. O'Connor, kindness isn't a luxury, it's survival. With that, she slipped from the room, leaving Liam with more questions than answers about the woman who had quite possibly saved his life. Over the next week, Liam's strength returned gradually. He learned that the Frontier Hotel had once been the pride of Copper Creek during the silver boom 10 years prior. Now, with the mines playing out and the railroad bypassing the town, it served mainly as a way station for travelers passing through to more prosperous destinations. Abigail ran the establishment with remarkable efficiency, from the simple but hearty meals served in the small dining room to the immaculately kept rooms. Her father, Theodore Forrester, had been gone for nearly a month, supposedly securing investments to renovate the hotel. He believes the mining companies will return, Abigail explained one evening as they sat in the hotel's small library. Outside, the early November snow fell in gentle flurries, transforming the muddy street into a pristine white canvas. Father refuses to accept that Copper Creek's best days are behind it. And you? Liam asked, watching the way the firelight played across her features. What do you believe? Abigail sighed, setting aside her mending, one of Liam's shirts that had been torn and bloodied. I believe in being practical. The silver's gone. The town is dying. But this is still our home, and as long as there are people passing through, they'll need a place to stay. You could leave, Liam suggested. A woman with your skills could find work in Helena or even Denver, and take Emma away from the only home she's known. Abigail shook her head. Besides, this hotel was my mother's dream before she married Father. I couldn't abandon it. Liam leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. In the week of his recovery, he'd shared meals with Abigail and Emma, helped with small repairs around the hotel when his strength allowed, and found himself increasingly drawn to the elder Forrester sister. Her quiet determination, her gentle humor, and the fierce protectiveness she showed toward Emma resonated with something deep within him. What about you, Liam O'Connor? Abigail asked, her gaze direct. You've told us you were a ranch hand, and before that a soldier, but little else. What are you running from? The question hung between them, unavoidable now. Liam had known it was coming, had rehearsed various answers in his mind, but faced with Abigail's honest inquiry, the carefully crafted half-truths felt wrong. Men who think I have something that belongs to them, he finally said. My brother Patrick and I were working at the Broken Spur Ranch near Helena. The owner, James Caldwell, is not just a rancher but has interests in the territorial government. He's been using his position to force smaller ranchers off their land, claiming water rights violations or unpaid taxes. Abigail's expression grew concerned. That's happening all over the territory. Patrick discovered ledgers proving Caldwell was bribing officials. Liam continued, his voice dropping lower though they were alone. We were going to take them to the federal marshal in Helena, but someone betrayed us. Patrick was shot dead on the trail. I barely escaped with my life and the evidence. The ledgers, you still have them? Abigail whispered. Liam nodded. Hidden. I need to recover my strength before I can complete what my brother died for. Abigail was silent for a long moment, processing his revelation. When she spoke, her voice was steady. You'll need help. Caldwell's men will be watching for a lone rider heading to Helena. I can't involve you in this, Abigail. It's too dangerous. You already have, she pointed out. The moment you stumbled through our door bleeding. Before Liam could argue further, Emma burst into the room, her cheeks flushed from the cold. She had been playing in the kitchen with Mrs. Holbrook, the elderly woman who helped with cooking and cleaning. Abby, Mr. Mason's here with the mail, and he brought a telegram for Father. Abigail stood, smoothing her skirts. Thank you, Emma. I'll be right there. As she moved to follow her sister, she paused beside Liam's chair and placed a hand on his shoulder. This conversation isn't finished, Mr. O'Connor. The touch of her hand lingered long after she'd left the room, leaving Liam with the unsettling realization that his plan to leave Copper Creek as soon as he was able had become considerably more complicated. The telegram brought unwelcome news. Theodore Forrester's return would be delayed another month, as his business in Helena had encountered complications. More troubling was the postscript. He had taken out a loan using the hotel as collateral. He's gambling again. Abigail confessed that night after Emma was asleep. She and Liam sat in the hotel's deserted dining room, a pot of coffee between them. It started after Mother died. He'd disappear for weeks, return with grand plans and empty pockets. The hotel could be foreclosed? Liam asked, understanding now the worry that had creased her brow since the telegram's arrival. If he doesn't return with the money to repay the loan, yes. Abigail's hands tightened around her coffee cup. I've been saving what I can from the hotel's income, but it's nowhere near enough. Liam considered her situation, seeing parallels to his own. Both of them trapped by circumstances beyond their control, both fighting to protect what they loved. I've been thinking, he said slowly. The ledgers I took from Caldwell contain more than evidence of bribery. They have details of his financial dealings, including the names of men whose land he's stolen. If these men were compensated, if Caldwell was brought to justice, there would be rewards. Abigail finished, understanding dawning. Liam, that's even more reason for you to be careful. Men like Caldwell don't surrender power easily. I know. Liam reached across the table, covering her hand with his. But I can't hide forever, and you can't wait for your father to return with money he likely doesn't have. The contact between them, simple as it was, sent warmth coursing through Liam's body. Since his arrival, there had been moments, shared glances, lingering touches when passing dishes at meals, the way she sometimes looked at him when she thought he wouldn't notice, that suggested Abigail might feel the same inexplicable pull that he did. What do you propose? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I need to retrieve the ledgers. I hid them before coming to Copper Creek, about a day's ride from here. Once I have them, I can continue to Helena. Alone. The concern in her voice was unmistakable. It would be safer that way. Abigail withdrew her hand, and Liam immediately missed its warmth. Safer for whom? You're still recovering, and Caldwell's men could be watching the trails. Two travelers attract less attention than a lone rider, especially if one appears to be a respectable woman. Abigail, no, Liam said firmly. I won't put you in danger, and I won't sit here waiting to lose both my home and— She stopped abruptly, color rising in her cheeks. And what? Liam prompted softly. And someone I've come to care for, she finished, meeting his gaze with determination. I'm going with you, Liam. Emma can stay with Mrs. Holbrook. She's done it before when Father and I both had to be away. The declaration stunned Liam into momentary silence. When he found his voice again, it was rough with emotion. You've come to care for me? A small smile touched her lips. Is that so surprising? You've shown more concern for this hotel and for Emma in 1 week than my father has in years. And you've shown me more kindness than I've known since my brother died, Liam admitted. But this isn't about kindness or gratitude, Abigail. What I feel when I look at you. The front door of the hotel banged open, interrupting his confession. Both of them jumped to their feet as heavy boots stomped into the lobby. Hello? Anybody here? Need a room for the night. The voice was slurred with drink, and Liam instinctively stepped in front of Abigail. Stay here, he murmured. I'll handle this. Be careful, she whispered back, but there was steel in her voice. My shotgun is behind the desk if you need it. With a nod, Liam moved into the lobby to greet the late-night arrival, leaving the conversation with Abigail tantalizingly unfinished. The drunken traveler proved harmless. A cattle buyer named Jenkins who paid for his room in advance and was snoring within minutes of being shown upstairs. But the interruption had broken the intimate moment between Liam and Abigail, and by morning, practical concerns had reasserted themselves. Over breakfast, they finalized their plan. They would leave the next day, telling anyone who asked that they were traveling to visit Abigail's ailing aunt in Billings. Emma would stay with Mrs. Holbrook, who lived in a small house behind the hotel and had already agreed to watch over both the child and the establishment. "I still don't like involving you," Liam said as they walked together to the general store later that morning. The air was crisp with coming winter, their breath forming clouds in front of them. "If anything happened to you, nothing will happen," Abigail assured him, though she couldn't possibly know that. "And if we succeed, the reward could save the hotel. It's worth the risk." Liam wanted to argue further, but was distracted by the sight of two unfamiliar men outside the telegraph office across the street. They wore city clothes that marked them as outsiders, and something about their watchful posture set off warnings in Liam's mind. Abigail followed his gaze. "Do you know them?" "No, but they're not local." Liam casually steered her into the general store, positioning himself so he could observe the street through the window. "How many new people typically come to Copper Creek in a week?" "This time of year?" "Almost none," Abigail replied, understanding his concern. "The stagecoach only comes through twice a week now, and the last one was yesterday with just Mr. Jenkins aboard. Which means they either rode in on their own or came on the earlier stage and have been staying somewhere else in town." Liam watched as one of the men emerged from the telegraph office, a folded paper in his hand. "We may need to leave sooner than planned." "Today?" Abigail looked worried. "I haven't prepared Emma, and Mrs. Holbrook is visiting her daughter until this evening." Liam considered their options. "We'll wait until dark. I'll slip out to the livery stable and prepare the horses while you get Emma settled with Mrs. Holbrook. Pack only what's essential. We need to travel light and fast." Abigail nodded, the gravity of their situation clearly sinking in. "Do you think they're Caldwell's men?" "I don't know, but I'd rather not find out by waiting for them to knock on our door." They completed their shopping quickly, supplies that wouldn't raise suspicion but would be useful on the trail, and returned to the hotel by a roundabout route that allowed Liam to confirm they weren't being followed. The rest of the day passed with excruciating slowness. Liam busied himself with minor repairs, all the while watching the street from various windows. The two strangers appeared again in the afternoon, this time entering the saloon across from the hotel. They remained inside for hours. As dusk approached, Mrs. Holbrook returned from her daughter's home. Abigail took Emma aside for a private conversation while Liam prepared their saddlebags, including a small package containing the money Abigail had saved. Not enough to pay off her father's loan, but enough to see them safely to Helena and back. "Will you really bring Abby back soon?" Emma asked later, finding Liam alone in the stables as he readied the horses. "As soon as our business is finished," Liam promised, touched by the child's concern. "Your sister is very brave, you know." Emma nodded solemnly. "She has to be. Father is never here, and Mother is in heaven." "You're brave too, Emma." The little girl scuffed the toe of her boot in the straw. "Not really. I'm scared all the time." Liam crouched down to her level, wincing slightly at the pull of his healing wound. "Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means doing what needs to be done even when you are scared." Emma considered this, then asked abruptly, "Are you going to marry Abby?" The question caught Liam entirely off guard. We haven't. That is, you should," Emma stated with childlike certainty. "She smiles more when you're around. And you look at her the way the prince looks at the princess in my storybook." Before Liam could formulate a response, Abigail appeared at the stable door, dressed for travel in a practical riding habit of deep green wool. Her hair was neatly braided and pinned up beneath a matching hat. "Emma, you shouldn't be bothering Liam," she scolded gently. "It's nearly time for your supper with Mrs. Holbrook." "I was just saying goodbye," Emma protested, but she obediently moved toward the door. Halfway there, she stopped and turned back to Liam. "Remember what I said." With that cryptic reminder, she scampered off, leaving Liam and Abigail alone in the warm, hay-scented stable. "What was that about?" Abigail asked, moving forward to check the cinch on her mare's saddle. Liam cleared his throat. "Just some advice from a very wise young lady." Abigail smiled fondly. "Emma has always been old beyond her years. She. Her words cut off as she glanced toward the stable entrance. Liam, look. Through the open door, they could see the two strangers from earlier crossing the street toward the hotel. Their purposeful stride suggested they were done waiting and watching. We need to leave now, Liam said urgently, helping Abigail into her saddle before mounting his own horse. Stay close to me, and if there's trouble, I can handle myself, she assured him, straightening her back. Let's go. They rode out the back of the stable, taking a narrow alley that led away from the main street. Liam's instincts screamed at him to gallop, to put as much distance between them and Copper Creek as possible, but a headlong flight would only draw attention. Instead, they maintained a steady trot until they reached the edge of town, where the road forked toward Billings to the east and deeper into the mountains to the west. Without hesitation, Liam guided his horse toward the western fork. Abigail followed, and soon the lights of Copper Creek disappeared behind them as they climbed into the foothills under the watchful gaze of a three-quarter moon. Only when they were miles from town did Abigail break the silence. Do you think they knew who you were? Those men. I don't know, Liam admitted. But they weren't in Copper Creek by coincidence. Caldwell has connections throughout the territory. He could have men watching every settlement within 100 miles of Helena. Then we'd better hope we're faster than any telegrams they might send, Abigail said grimly. Where exactly are we headed? Liam pointed toward a jagged ridgeline silhouetted against the night sky. There's an abandoned trapper's cabin near Eagle Creek, about 20 miles from here. That's where I hid the ledgers. And after that, Helena. Once the federal marshal has the evidence, Caldwell's power will crumble. Abigail rode silently for a few minutes, processing this. And then? What will you do when this is over, Liam? It was the question he'd been avoiding, not just with Abigail, but with himself. Before coming to Copper Creek, his only thought had been vengeance for his brother. Now, I don't know, he answered honestly. I haven't thought beyond seeing justice done. You could stay, she said quietly, so quietly he almost didn't hear it over the rhythm of the horse's hooves. In Copper Creek, the simple suggestion carried a weight of meaning that made Liam's heart race faster than their flight from town had. Would you want that? He asked, equally soft. Abigail lifted her gaze to meet his, moonlight silvering her features. Yes, she said simply. I would. The admission hung between them, fragile and precious. Liam wanted nothing more than to stop their horses, to take Abigail in his arms, and show her exactly how much her words meant to him. But they were exposed on the open trail, with unknown dangers potentially behind them. Then that's something worth fighting for, he said instead, his voice rough with emotion. Let's get these ledgers and finish this. With renewed determination, they pressed on into the night, the promise of a future together driving them forward into uncertain darkness. They reached the trapper's cabin shortly after dawn, having stopped only once to rest the horses and warm themselves with coffee from Abigail's thermos. The cabin was little more than a crude shelter, a single room with a stone fireplace, its roof partially collapsed on one side, but it had served Liam well as a hiding place. Wait here, he told Abigail as they dismounted. Let me check that everything's as I left it. Wary after months of being hunted, Liam approached the cabin cautiously, his hand resting on the revolver at his hip. The door hung crookedly on leather hinges. He pushed it open slowly, scanning the interior for any signs of disturbance. Relief washed over him. The cabin appeared untouched since his last visit. Moving to the fireplace, he knelt and carefully pried loose a stone from the hearth. Behind it was a small cavity where he had secreted the oilskin package containing Caldwell's ledgers. His fingers touched the familiar wrapper, and he pulled it out, quickly verifying that the documents were intact. Only then did he call to Abigail. It's safe. I've got what we came for. She entered the cabin, her face weary from the night's journey but her eyes bright with curiosity. Those are the ledgers? They don't look like much. That's part of their value, Liam explained, opening the package to show her the 3 small books inside. Caldwell kept these separate from his official accounts. They detail every bribe, every swindle, every man he's ruined. Names, dates, amounts, it's all here. Abigail examined one of the ledgers, her expression growing darker as she read. There are government officials listed here. Judges, tax assessors. Which is why Caldwell will do anything to get these back. Liam rewrapped the books carefully. We should rest here for a few hours, then continue to Helena. If we push hard, We can reach the city by tomorrow evening. Abigail nodded, then suddenly swayed on her feet. Liam was at her side instantly, supporting her with an arm around her waist. When was the last time you slept? He asked gently. I dozed a little in the saddle, she admitted, but not since the night before last. I was too busy preparing for our departure. Liam led her to a relatively clean corner of the cabin where pine boughs still formed a makeshift bed from his previous stay. Rest. I'll keep watch and prepare something to eat. Too exhausted to protest, Abigail sank onto the primitive bedding. Within minutes, her breathing had deepened into sleep. Liam covered her with his coat, then set about building a small fire in the fireplace, careful to use only dry wood that would produce minimal smoke. As he worked, he found his gaze repeatedly drawn to Abigail's sleeping form. The sunlight filtering through cracks in the cabin walls caught in her hair, turning the honey brown to gold. In sleep, the worry lines that had marked her forehead since the telegram's arrival were smoothed away, making her look even younger than her 23 years. Liam marveled at the turns his life had taken. A month ago, he had been consumed by grief and the thirst for vengeance. Now, watching Abigail sleep, he realized that somewhere along the way, his heart had begun to heal, and in the process, had opened itself to the possibility of love. The realization both elated and terrified him. There was still so much that could go wrong. Caldwell's reach was long, and even with the evidence in the ledgers, bringing him to justice would not be simple. And what of Abigail's father? The hotel? Emma? The future Abigail had tentatively offered and he had eagerly accepted was filled with complications. Yet looking at her now, Liam knew with absolute certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead, he wanted to face them with Abigail at his side. He was so lost in thought that he nearly missed the sound. A horse approaching, its hoofbeats muffled by the pine needles carpeting the forest floor. Instantly alert, Liam moved to the cabin's single window, peering cautiously through a gap in the shutters. A lone rider was approaching from the direction they had come, moving slowly, scanning the ground as if following a trail. Even from a distance, Liam recognized the distinctive duster and hat of one of the men from Copper Creek. Cursing silently, he retrieved his rifle from his saddlebag and checked that it was loaded. He debated waking Abigail, but decided against it. Let her get what rest she could. There was only one rider visible. Liam could handle him without alarming her. Moving quietly, he slipped out the cabin's back window and circled through the trees until he was positioned behind the approaching rider. The man had dismounted now and was examining the ground where Liam and Abigail's horses had passed just hours earlier. Liam aimed his rifle. That's far enough. The man froze, then slowly raised his hands. I'm unarmed. Turn around. Slowly. The stranger obeyed, and Liam was surprised to see not one of the men from town, but an older man with a weathered face and a silver badge pinned to his vest. Marshal Everett Riley, the man identified himself. And you must be Liam O'Connor. Liam kept his rifle trained on the marshal. How do you know my name? Patrick O'Connor was my informant, Riley said calmly. He'd been feeding me information about Caldwell for months. When he didn't make our rendezvous, I started looking for his brother, you. Liam's grip on the rifle tightened. Prove it. Patrick called Caldwell the Spider because of how his web of corruption stretched across the territory. He said if anything happened to him, you would continue his work. The details were correct, things only Patrick would have known. Slowly, Liam lowered his weapon. Why come alone? He asked, still suspicious. And how did you find us? Coming with a posse would have attracted Caldwell's attention, Riley explained. As for finding you, I've been tracking various reports of a man matching your description for weeks. The telegraph operator in Copper Creek recognized you from the description I circulated to law enforcement, privately, not as a wanted man. When he saw you leave town in a hurry with a young woman, he sent word. There were 2 men in town watching the hotel, Liam said, moving closer but keeping his rifle ready. They weren't yours. No. Riley's expression darkened. Probably Caldwell's men. Which means we need to move quickly. Do you have the ledgers? Liam hesitated, still not entirely convinced. And if I do, then we ride for Helena immediately. I have a federal judge waiting to issue warrants based on that evidence. A noise from the direction of the cabin made both men turn. Abigail stood in the doorway, Liam's revolver held steadily in both hands, aimed at Marshal Riley. Abigail, it's all right, Liam called. He says he's a federal marshal. He was working with Patrick. I heard, she replied, not lowering the gun. I also heard that the telegraph operator in Copper Creek recognized you from a description. That's concerning, since we were careful not to be seen leaving together. Her observation sent a chill through Liam. She was right. They had deliberately left town separately to avoid drawing attention. Riley's face remained impassive. Perhaps I misunderstood the telegraph. It was brief. Or perhaps you're not who you claim to be, Abigail suggested, her voice remarkably steady for someone who had never aimed a gun at a man before. A real marshal would carry identification beyond a badge that could be purchased in any general store. Clever girl, Riley said, his demeanor shifting subtly. His hand moved toward his coat. As it happens, I do have identification. Don't move, Liam warned, raising his rifle again. Too late. He saw the glint of metal as Riley drew a derringer from his sleeve. The small pistol barked once, and searing pain exploded in Liam's left shoulder. He staggered but managed to keep his feet, firing his rifle one-handed. The shot went wide as Riley dove behind a boulder. Liam, Abigail cried out, rushing to his side despite the danger. Get back to the cabin, he ordered through gritted teeth, but she ignored him, supporting him as they both retreated toward the relative safety of the cabin walls. Once inside, Abigail barred the door and helped Liam to a chair. Blood soaked his shirt where the Derringer's bullet had struck him. It's not deep, she assessed, tearing a strip from her petticoat to create a temporary bandage. But it needs proper attention. Later, Liam said, positioning himself by the window with his rifle. He won't be alone for long. We need to leave now. Who is he? Not a marshal, obviously. One of Caldwell's men, most likely. Liam scanned the clearing outside the cabin, but Riley had disappeared into the surrounding woods. The real Marshal Riley is probably dead, or was never working with Patrick to begin with. Abigail moved efficiently around the cabin, gathering their belongings. What's the plan? We can't go back the way we came. They'll have men watching that trail. We'll have to head north, over the ridge. There's a settlement called Elk Haven about 30 miles from here. From there, we can take the stage to Helena. With you wounded? Abigail looked dubious. I've ridden with worse, Liam assured her, though the throbbing in his shoulder suggested otherwise. The ledgers are what matter. If we don't get them to Helena, Patrick died for nothing. Abigail finished packing their saddlebags and moved to check on their horses, which were tethered at the back of the cabin. She returned moments later, her face pale. They're gone. Both horses. Liam cursed. He must have spooked them while we were distracted. What now? His horse is still out there. I can see it from here. Liam tried to think past the pain clouding his mind. One of us could make a run for it, try to reach the horse, and the other stays behind as a target? Abigail shook her head. No, we stay together. A voice called from outside. O'Connor, let's be reasonable about this. Liam and Abigail exchanged glances. What do you want? Liam shouted back. Just the ledgers. That's all. Give them to me, and you and the lady can walk away. Caldwell doesn't even know about her. She doesn't have to be involved. Don't trust him, Abigail whispered. I don't, Liam assured her. But we need time. He raised his voice again. How do I know you won't shoot us the moment we step outside? You don't, came the reply. But you're in a cabin with one door, wounded, and on foot. I could wait for my men to arrive, or simply burn you out. The ledgers might survive, you two wouldn't. The brutal logic was undeniable. Liam looked at Abigail, saw the fear she was trying to hide, and made a decision. I'll go out with the ledgers, he told her quietly. When he's distracted, you run for his horse. Liam, no, it's our only chance, Abigail. One of us needs to get the ledgers to Helena. Tears welled in her eyes. He'll kill you. Maybe, but not before you're safely away. Liam touched her face gently. I never told you, but that night in the dining room, when we were interrupted, what I was going to say was that I've fallen in love with you, Abigail Forrester. A sob escaped her. Don't do this. Please. I have to. Liam pressed the package of ledgers into her hands. Keep these safe. Get them to Helena. Find the real Marshal Riley if he exists, or any federal official you can trust. Make them understand what Caldwell has done. And then what? Return to Copper Creek without you. Abigail clutched the ledgers to her chest. I can't. You can. For Emma. For the hotel. For all the people Caldwell has hurt. Liam kissed her. A brief, desperate meeting of lips that conveyed everything words couldn't. Now, when I go out, wait until you hear us talking, then slip out the back and circle around to his horse. Don't look back, no matter what you hear." Before she could protest further, Liam moved to the door. "I'm coming out," he called. "I have the ledgers." He turned back to Abigail one last time. "I love you," he whispered, then unbarred the door and stepped outside, his hands raised, the false package he had quickly assembled held visibly in one hand. Riley stood about 20 yards from the cabin, his revolver aimed at Liam's chest. "Just drop the ledgers and back away," he instructed. Liam did as he was told, fighting to keep his gaze from straying to the back of the cabin where he hoped Abigail was making her escape. "Caldwell will be pleased," the man said, moving forward to retrieve the package. "He's been quite irritated about these going missing." "I imagine he has," Liam replied, watching carefully for any opening, any chance to rush the man before he discovered the deception. Hard to run a criminal empire when your records are missing. Riley reached the package and bent to pick it up, his gun still trained on Liam. "It was nothing personal about your brother, you know? He simply made the wrong enemies." "It's personal to me," Liam said coldly. The man straightened, the package in his hand. Liam tensed, preparing to charge him despite the gun, when suddenly a shot rang out from the trees to their right. Riley cried out, dropping both the package and his revolver as he clutched his arm. Blood seeped between his fingers. "Don't move," a commanding voice ordered as a rider emerged from the forest. It was a man in his 40s, wearing a dusty trail coat and a battered hat. A silver star glinted on his chest, a different design than the one Riley had worn. "Federal Marshal John Blackburn, you're under arrest." Liam stared in disbelief as two more mounted men appeared, their rifles aimed at the wounded imposter. One of them was leading Liam and Abigail's recovered horses. "Liam," Abigail's voice came from behind the marshal. She urged her mount forward, her face alight with relief and joy. "You're supposed to be halfway to Elk Haven by now," Liam said weakly as she dismounted and rushed to embrace him. "I couldn't leave you," she admitted, holding him carefully to avoid his wounded shoulder. "I was circling around to the horse when I heard riders approaching. I hid and watched. It was lucky I did, because I recognized the marshal from a visit he made to Copper Creek last year." Marshal Blackburn approached, having secured the false Riley. "Miss Forrester explained your situation. Those ledgers you're carrying could break Caldwell's hold on half the territory." "You know about Caldwell?" Liam asked. "We've been building a case against him for over a year," Blackburn confirmed. "But without concrete evidence, he's been untouchable. Your brother was working with us before he was killed." The confirmation that Patrick had indeed been working with the law settled something in Liam's heart. His brother hadn't died in vain after all. "The ledgers are inside," Abigail told the marshal, moving to support Liam as the adrenaline faded and his knees threatened to buckle. "Along with our belongings. We'll get them," Blackburn assured her. "But first, let's tend to that shoulder. My deputy has some medical training." As they moved toward the marshal's camp, where a fire already burned, Liam marveled at their sudden change in fortune. "How did you find us?" "Luck, mostly," Blackburn admitted. "We've been tracking this man," he nodded toward the false Riley, now securely bound and seated by the fire, "for weeks. When he suddenly left Helena in a hurry 2 days ago, we followed. Lost his trail briefly near Copper Creek, but picked it up again this morning." "Then you don't know about the men watching the hotel in town?" Abigail asked anxiously. "No, but we'll handle them next," the marshal promised. "For now, let's get you both safely to Helena. The circuit judge arrives in 3 days, just in time to issue warrants based on those ledgers." As the deputy cleaned and bandaged Liam's wound, he found himself watching Abigail, who was speaking earnestly with Marshal Blackburn, no doubt explaining about her sister and the hotel. She caught his eye and smiled, a smile that contained both relief and something deeper, something that made Liam's heart swell with hope. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. The journey to Helena passed in a blur of pain and feverish dreams for Liam. The wound in his shoulder, though not life-threatening, had become infected during the ride. By the time they reached the territorial capital, he was burning with fever. Abigail refused to leave his side as the city doctor worked to clean the infection, applying poultices and administering medicine that tasted foul but gradually reduced his fever. Through it all, Liam was aware of her presence, her cool hand on his forehead, her voice reading to him from the newspaper or simply talking about her plans for the hotel. Emma would love the gardens here, she told him one afternoon as he finally began to regain his strength. So many flowers, even with winter approaching. And the buildings, all brick and proper glass windows. Nothing like our weathered boards in Copper Creek. Do you wish you could stay? Liam asked, watching her closely. In a proper city, I mean. Abigail looked surprised by the question. No, Copper Creek is home, rough edges and all. Though I wouldn't mind bringing some of Helena's refinements back with us, assuming there's something to go back to after Father's loan comes due. There will be, Liam assured her. Marshal Blackburn says the territorial government will pay a substantial reward for the evidence in those ledgers. Enough to clear your father's debt, and then some. It still seems unreal, Abigail admitted, adjusting the blanket across his legs. A month ago, I was certain I would lose the hotel, and now. Now, Liam prompted when she trailed off. Now everything has changed. She met his gaze directly, including us. Before Liam could respond, the door opened to admit Marshal Blackburn. The lawman's expression was grimly satisfied. It's done, he announced. Judge Halloran issued the warrants this morning. Caldwell was arrested an hour ago, along with 3 territorial officials named in the ledgers. Liam felt a weight lift from his shoulders, one he had carried since finding his brother's body on that lonely trail months ago. And the men who were watching the hotel in Copper Creek. Deputies picked them up yesterday. They're being brought to Helena for questioning. Blackburn removed his hat, turning it in his hands. There's something else you should know. We received a wire from Copper Creek this morning. Theodore Forrester returned 2 days ago. Abigail gasped. My father? Is Emma all right? The message says she's fine, Blackburn assured her. But your father was upset to find you gone. Apparently, there was some confusion about where you had gone and why. Mrs. Holbrook would have told him we went to visit my aunt in Billings, Abigail said, frowning. That was our cover story. According to the wire, he doesn't believe it. He's threatening to sell the hotel immediately to cover his debts. He can't. Abigail stood, her hands clenched at her sides. Not without my signature. Not while I'm still a partial owner through my mother's will. All the more reason for us to return as soon as possible, Liam said, struggling to sit up straighter. When can we leave? The stage to Billings departs tomorrow morning, Blackburn said. From there, you can hire horses to Copper Creek. But are you sure you're strong enough to travel, O'Connor? I will be by tomorrow, Liam insisted, though the room spun slightly when he moved. We need to get back to Emma. Abigail touched his arm. Liam, if you're not well enough, I am, he said firmly. We started this together, and we'll finish it together. Something in his tone must have convinced her, because Abigail nodded. Very well. I'll make the arrangements and pack our things. After she left to secure their stage tickets, Blackburn regarded Liam thoughtfully. That's quite a woman. Yes, Liam agreed simply. She is. And what are your intentions toward her, once this business is settled? The directness of the question might have offended Liam from another man, but there was genuine concern in the marshal's weathered face. Honorable ones, Liam answered. If she'll have me. Blackburn seemed satisfied. Good. The territorial governor has asked to meet with you both before you leave. The reward for Caldwell's ledgers will be substantial, enough to start a new life, if that's what you want. Liam thought of Copper Creek, of the Frontier Hotel with its faded glory, of little Emma and her storybooks. Most of all, he thought of Abigail, of the strength and grace she had shown throughout their ordeal. I already know what kind of life I want, he told the marshal. I just need to find out if Abigail wants the same. The stagecoach journey to Billings was uncomfortable for Liam, whose shoulder throbbed with every jolt and turn of the road. But having Abigail beside him, her hand often resting reassuringly on his arm, made the discomfort bearable. They spoke little during the journey, both lost in their own thoughts about what awaited them in Copper Creek. The governor had been as good as his word. A substantial reward had been paid for the ledgers, with additional funds promised once Caldwell and his associates stood trial. Abigail carried bank drafts that would more than cover her father's debts, with enough left over to renovate the hotel, as she had long dreamed of doing. But money, Liam knew, wouldn't solve all their problems. Theodore Forrester's unexpected return had complicated matters. What if he refused to accept their help? What if he objected to Liam's presence in his daughter's life? You're worrying again, Abigail observed as the stagecoach rattled through a particularly rough stretch of road. I can see it in your eyes. Just thinking about your father, Liam admitted. From what you've told me, he's a proud man. He may not welcome our return, especially with me at your side. He lost the right to dictate my choices when he abandoned Emma and me to chase silver dreams and gambling tables, Abigail said firmly. Besides, once he understands your part in securing the reward money, I'm sure he'll be perfectly civil. And if he's not? Abigail squared her shoulders in a way that Liam had come to recognize as her preparing for battle. Then we'll build our own future, with or without his blessing. Our future, Liam repeated, savoring the words. I like the sound of that. She smiled, a warm, private smile that he had come to treasure. So do I. In Billings, they hired horses and a guide for the final leg of their journey to Copper Creek. The trip took another full day, with Liam stubbornly refusing to stop despite Abigail's concerns about his wound. It was late afternoon when they finally crested the ridge overlooking Copper Creek. The town looked smaller somehow, more fragile than Liam remembered, with thin wisps of smoke rising from scattered chimneys against the backdrop of snow-dusted mountains. Home, Abigail murmured, her voice catching. They rode down the main street, drawing curious glances from the few townspeople braving the November chill. The Frontier Hotel stood as they had left it, though Liam noticed fresh paint on the front door and new curtains in the ground-floor windows. Father's been busy, Abigail observed, dismounting in front of the hotel. Those curtains weren't here when we left. Before they could enter, the door flew open, and Emma burst out, her face alight with joy. Abby, Liam, you're back. She launched herself at her sister, who caught her in a tight embrace. Oh, Emma, I've missed you so much. You were gone forever, Emma complained, though her smile never faltered. Father said you ran away with a dangerous man, but Mrs. Holbrook told me you were being brave, like in my stories. Abigail shot Liam a concerned glance over her sister's head. Is Father here now? In his office, Emma confirmed, finally releasing her sister to give Liam a careful hug, mindful of his injured arm in its sling. He's been meeting with men about selling the hotel. Has he now? Abigail's expression hardened. Well, we'll see about that. She turned to Liam. Are you coming? This is between you and your father, Liam said. I'll take care of the horses and join you shortly. Abigail looked like she might argue, but then nodded. Come, Emma. Let's go speak with Father. As they disappeared inside, Liam led the horses toward the stable behind the hotel. He was unsurprised when Emma reappeared at his side moments later. Abby told me to help you with the horses, she announced, though her expression suggested she had volunteered rather than been sent. Father is shouting. He does that a lot since he came back. Does he? Liam handed her a brush. You can brush down your sister's mare while I take care of mine. Emma nodded seriously, applying herself to the task with surprising skill for a child her age. Are you going to marry Abby now? She asked after a few minutes of silence. Liam nearly dropped his saddle. What makes you ask that? Because you love her, Emma stated matter-of-factly. And she loves you. And when people love each other, they get married. That's how it works in my books. Life isn't always as simple as storybooks, Emma. It should be. She set down the brush and fixed him with a solemn stare. Abby needs someone who won't leave. Father always leaves. Mother didn't mean to leave, but she did. You won't leave, will you? The direct question, asked with such childlike earnestness, struck Liam to the heart. No, Emma. If it's up to me, I won't ever leave. Good. She nodded, satisfied. Then you should marry Abby, and we can all live at the hotel, and you can help fix the leaky roof that Father never fixes. Liam couldn't help but laugh at her practical reasoning. I'll certainly consider your suggestion. They finished tending to the horses in companionable silence. As they walked back toward the hotel, Liam noticed a man watching them from an upstairs window, a tall figure with Abigail's honey-brown hair streaked with silver. Theodore Forrester had seen them, and from his expression, he was not pleased. Inside, the hotel was unnaturally quiet. Mrs. Holbrook greeted them in the lobby, her kind face creased with worry. Miss Emma, why don't you come help me in the kitchen? I've baked ginger cookies to welcome your sister home. Emma looked between the adults, clearly sensing the tension. Is Father still shouting? No, dear. But your sister and Father are having an important conversation. Adult business. About the hotel, and the money Liam and Abby brought back. Mrs. Holbrook shot Liam a startled glance. How did you know about that? I listen, Emma said simply. Father wants to sell the hotel, but it's Abby's too, because of Mother's will. And now they have money from the bad man who shot Liam, so they don't need to sell anything. Emma Forrester, you are entirely too clever for your own good, Mrs. Holbrook said, shaking her head. Now come along. The cookies are getting cold. As they disappeared toward the kitchen, Liam hesitated, unsure whether to follow them or to find Abigail. The decision was made for him when Theodore Forrester descended the stairs, his face thunderous. You must be O'Connor, he said without preamble. The man who convinced my daughter to abandon her responsibilities and gallivant across the territory. Liam straightened, meeting the older man's gaze steadily. Sir, with all due respect, your daughter made her own choice to help bring a criminal to justice. And she never abandoned her responsibilities. Everything she did was to protect this hotel and Emma. So she claims. Forrester's voice dripped with skepticism, along with some fantastic story about rewards from the territorial government. I suppose that was your idea too. It was the truth, Abigail said, appearing at the top of the stairs. Her face was flushed, whether from anger or tears Liam couldn't tell. And I have the bank drafts to prove it. More than enough to clear your gambling debts and save the hotel. Forrester's expression flickered with something. Shame, perhaps, or simply thwarted pride. I don't need charity from my daughter and her friend. It's not charity, Abigail said, descending to stand beside Liam. It's your daughter preventing you from throwing away her mother's legacy. The hotel belongs to both of us, Father. I won't let you sell it. And what do you propose instead? That we continue running this fading establishment in a dying town. Copper Creek isn't dying, Liam interjected. The silver mines played out, yes, but there's good ranchland in these valleys. With the railroad just 30 miles east, there's opportunity for the right kind of enterprise. Forrester regarded him with narrow eyes. And what would a drifter know about enterprise? I was a rancher before circumstances forced me to leave my home, Liam said. And I've seen enough of the territory to know potential when I see it. Liam has experience with cattle and horses, Abigail added. And connections now, through Marshall Blackburn. With the reward money, we could not only renovate the hotel, but invest in breeding stock. Create a reason for people to come to Copper Creek again. Forrester looked between them, his expression unreadable. You speak as though you've already decided your futures together. Abigail's hand found Liam's, her fingers intertwining with his. We have discussed possibilities, she said carefully. But nothing is settled yet. Something in her father's face softened almost imperceptibly. Your mother was just as determined, just as willing to see possibilities where others saw only obstacles. He sighed, suddenly looking older, wearier. I need time to consider your proposal, and to examine these bank drafts you claim to possess. Of course, Abigail agreed, though Liam could feel the tension in her hand. The drafts are in my valise. I'll bring them to your office. As Forrester retreated up the stairs, Abigail turned to Liam, her expression apologetic. He's always been stubborn, but I think there's hope. He mentioned Mother. He rarely does that unless he's been deeply affected by something. Then we'll give him time, Liam agreed. Meanwhile, there's something I want to discuss with you. Something Emma brought up, actually. Abigail raised an eyebrow. Oh, and what wisdom did my little sister impart this time? Before Liam could answer, Emma herself burst from the kitchen, a cookie in each hand, and Mrs. Holbrook following with a harried expression. I told her to wait. The older woman apologized. But she heard your voices, and, is Father going to let you keep the hotel? Emma demanded, looking up at her sister. Are you and Liam going to be married? Can I wear a pretty dress for the wedding? Emma, Abigail exclaimed, her cheeks coloring. That's not. We haven't. Actually, Liam interrupted, dropping to one knee despite the protest from his wounded shoulder. I was just about to ask your sister a very important question. Abigail's eyes widened as she realized what was happening. Liam, you don't have to. I do, he said firmly, taking her hand in his. Abigail Forrester, from the moment I stumbled into your hotel, you have shown me nothing but kindness, courage, and strength. You risked everything to help a stranger seek justice. And in doing so, you saved more than my life. You saved my faith in humanity, my hope for the future. I love you. And if you'll have me, I want to spend the rest of my days showing you just how much. Tears filled Abigail's eyes. Are you certain? After everything that's happened, everything you know about my family, this town, I have never been more certain of anything, Liam assured her. I love you, Abigail. I love Emma. And I even think I could come to respect your father, given time. Will you marry me? Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes, Liam O'Connor. Yes, I will marry you. Emma clapped her hands in delight as Liam rose to embrace Abigail. Mrs. Holbrook dabbed at her eyes with her apron, murmuring something about young love being the sweetest. From the top of the stairs, unnoticed by the celebrating group below, Theodore Forrester watched his daughter's radiant face as she accepted Liam's proposal. For the first time in years, she looked exactly like her mother, filled with the same joy, the same certainty, the same boundless hope for the future. Perhaps, he thought, it was time to stop running from the past and start building something new. Spring came early to Copper Creek in 1877. The mountain snows melted swiftly, feeding the streams that crisscrossed the valley and turning the surrounding hills a vibrant green. At the Frontier Hotel, newly repainted and sporting a freshly carved sign, preparations for a wedding were in full swing. Abigail stood at the window of her bedroom, watching as townspeople and visitors from neighboring settlements arrived for the ceremony. The hotel was full for the first time in years, partly due to the wedding and partly due to the cattle auction that Theodore Forrester had organized to coincide with it. The past 5 months had seen remarkable changes in Copper Creek. With the reward money from Caldwell's conviction, the rancher was now serving 20 years in the territorial prison. The Forresters had not only renovated the hotel, but established a modest cattle breeding operation on adjacent land purchased from a departing miner. Liam had proven himself an able business partner to Theodore, whose initial skepticism had gradually given way to grudging respect and eventually genuine affection. Together, they had convinced several experienced cowboys from larger ranches to relocate to Copper Creek, bringing their families and breathing new life into the town. A knock at the door interrupted Abigail's reflections. "Come in," she called, expecting Emma or Mrs. Holbrook with last-minute wedding details. Instead, her father entered, elegant in a new suit ordered from Helena for the occasion. He paused in the doorway, his expression softening as he took in the sight of his daughter in her wedding gown. Her mother's wedding gown, carefully altered and adorned with fresh lace. "You look just like her," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "She would be so proud of you, Abigail." "Thank you, Father." Abigail smoothed the ivory silk of her skirts. "For everything. For accepting Liam, for staying, for helping build something new here." "I should be thanking you," Theodore replied, moving further into the room. "You gave me a second chance I didn't deserve. You and that stubborn young man you're about to marry." Abigail smiled. "He is stubborn, isn't he? Almost as stubborn as you. Which is why you love him," her father observed wryly. "You always did prefer a challenge." A companionable silence fell between them, healing the last of the wounds inflicted by years of misunderstanding and absence. Finally, Theodore offered his arm. "Are you ready? Your groom is waiting, and if I know Emma, she's already scattered far more flower petals than necessary down the aisle." Laughing, Abigail took his arm. "I'm ready." The ceremony was held in the hotel's newly expanded dining room, transformed for the occasion with wildflowers and ribbons. As Abigail entered on her father's arm, she saw Liam waiting at the makeshift altar, his eyes filled with love and wonder. Beside him stood Marshall Blackburn, who had traveled from Helena to serve as best man. Emma, resplendent in a pale blue dress that matched her role as maid of honor, beamed from her place at the front, her basket of flower petals indeed suspiciously empty. The service was simple but heartfelt, with Reverend Collins from Billings officiating. When Liam and Abigail exchanged their vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Even Theodore Forrester was seen discreetly wiping away a tear. At the reception that followed, with music provided by local fiddle players and tables laden with food prepared by Mrs. Holbrook and the town's other good cooks, Emma found herself momentarily alone as the adults danced and celebrated. She sat on the hotel's front porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and pink. A small girl, younger than Emma, approached hesitantly. She was the daughter of one of the new families in town, brought by the promise of work at the Forrester Ranch. "Is it true," the child asked, "that your sister married a real hero who caught a bad man and saved the whole town?" Emma considered the question with the seriousness it deserved. "Yes," she said finally, "but that's not why she married him." Why then? Because they love each other, Emma explained patiently. And because he promised never to leave, and he keeps his promises. The little girl nodded, accepting this wisdom. Then she asked, will you teach me to ride? Your sister said you're the best rider for your age in Copper Creek. Emma felt a surge of pride at Abigail's praise. I suppose I could, she said magnanimously. We can start tomorrow, if you want. I'd like that, the girl replied shyly. I've never had a friend before. Something in the child's voice, a loneliness Emma recognized from her own experience, touched her heart. What's your name? Sarah. Well, Sarah, I'm Emma Forrester, and I think we're going to be great friends. As the two girls began to chatter, Abigail and Liam stepped onto the porch, momentarily escaping the festivities inside. Look at that, Liam murmured, nodding toward Emma and her new friend. Already making the newcomers feel welcome. She has a gift for it, Abigail agreed, leaning into her husband's embrace. Much like someone else I know. Liam chuckled, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. I wasn't exactly welcomed with open arms, as I recall. More like dragged in bleeding and unconscious. Details, Abigail dismissed with a laugh. The point is, you stayed. Of course I stayed. He turned her to face him, his expression serious despite the joy of the day. I found everything I never knew I was looking for right here in Copper Creek. A home, a purpose, and most importantly, you. I'll never leave, Abigail. Not as long as I draw breath. I know. She rose on tiptoe to kiss him, a brief but tender gesture. And I'll never let you go. As twilight descended on the small frontier town, casting long shadows across the single street, Liam and Abigail O'Connor stood on the porch of the Frontier Hotel, their arms around each other, watching as new friendships formed and old wounds healed. The future stretched before them, as vast and promising as the Montana sky. Emma glanced over at her sister and new brother-in-law, smiling at the love so evident in their faces. It was just like in her storybooks after all. The brave hero, the steadfast heroine, and the happily ever after that came when two hearts found each other against all odds. And if a small voice in the back of her mind whispered that her own story was just beginning, well, she had the best examples to follow. For now, though, she was content to let Sarah try on her flower crown, to hear the music and laughter spilling from the hotel, and to know that sometimes, even in the wild uncertainty of the frontier, love found a way to build something lasting. In the years to come, travelers passing through Copper Creek would often remark on the unusual prosperity of the small town, the warm welcome at the Frontier Hotel, and the remarkable story of the young couple who had transformed a dying silver camp into a thriving community. But for Liam and Abigail O'Connor, the greatest transformation had been within their own hearts. From strangers thrown together by circumstance to partners bound by a love stronger than any challenge the frontier could present. And it had all begun with a wounded man stumbling through a door on a rainy night, and a woman brave enough to take him in.